spoke, and she was with a group of media. And here's Dr. Livingstone about the Big 12, about the transition, about money, about everything.
Yeah, Baylor's going to be at the forefront. You know, once Texas and OU are gone, you guys already are showing up on the field. How big is it for you to actually have to also show up at the box office and at the cash register, because this is business?
Well, you know, college athletics has become really big business, and we all recognize that and know that. And, you know, I think what we're trying to do as individual schools and as a conference is position ourselves extremely well, both competitively, brand-wise, particularly as we prepare for the next media rights negotiation, to be a really strong conference out there. And it starts with how you perform athletically and then how you build that brand. So I feel great about what we're doing at Baylor. I feel great about what's happening across the conference. I think we're going to be really well positioned.
You know, as a student athlete, that sometimes coaches think about self-interest. And I'm talking about your quarterback decision.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches would have waited until fall to make sure you didn't have a transfer situation. What does that say about Dave, you think, that he came out and did that in the spring?
Well, you could tell just listening to him how painful that was for him, how personally difficult that was for him, because he thinks so much of Gary and Blake, of course, too. So, you know, I just think it shows what a quality person he is, how much he cares about his players, and that he's trying to do what's in their best interest and set them up to be successful. And if they can do that at Baylor, that's fabulous. But if he knows that's not going to be the case, to help them to position themselves somewhere else. And so you have to give him a lot of credit for that, the integrity that shows in him doing what was best for the player.
Do you buy into the idea that he's a little out of the box when it comes to traditional coaches?
Well, I think that's a pretty good description. You know, we love Dave. He's got such a good heart, and he's such a deep thinker. You know, as you could tell listening to him, it's so much for him as he prepares his players about what's going on up here in their head, as much as it is what's happening with them physically. And almost all his answers ultimately got back to what was going on in their hearts and in their heads. And so I don't think you hear that as much from other coaches. So we love that about Dave. It's a wonderful fit with Baylor and who we are as a faith-based institution.
Well, you talk about, obviously, brand, and the Big 12 brand is a big part of what's going on. With Brett Yormark, how did he come on the radar? I mean, obviously, I think I've heard a lot of people say when they heard his name, they had to go Google him to see who he was. So, I mean, how did you guys come to him, and how did that kind of evolve?
Well, we worked with the search firm Turnkey ZRG, and they did a lot of listening within the conference to understand what our challenges were, what our opportunities were, what we were looking for. And then, you know, they'd done the ACC and the Pac-12 search, so they kind of knew the landscape really well of college athletics, and frankly had vetted a lot of people over time for these different roles. And as they pulled together a pool of candidates for us, given what we said we were looking for, it was an unbelievably strong pool. I think it showed the interest in the conference, the confidence in the conference. There were great internal people with collegiate experience, but then there were also some really great external. And ultimately, Brett rose to the top because, you know, we could tell that with his experience in professional sports, in sponsorships, in media, in entertainment, given where college athletics is going and all the changes taking place with our media rights negotiation coming up, that Brett, in combination with the really strong athletic directors we have across the conference, would be a great combination to position us really well for the future.
How much can the Big 12 take? They continually seem to be in a position where there's a little bit of uncertainty the last 10 or 12 years.
Well, I think it's shown that we're an unbelievably resilient conference, and that we, you know, every time we face a difficult situation, we come out really strong and on top. And I think we showed that last year. And I think as we kind of go through this transition, whatever it ultimately ends up looking like, we'll come out in a really good position going forward. But I think it's just the resilience and the commitment of the people in the conference to continue to work together and position us well for the future.
Do you worry about college athletics becoming too big?
I think that we got to continue to remember that this is all about our student athletes, and they are students first and then athletes. And so I think we have to be really mindful as we also recognize the business side of what we're doing and the importance of that these are young men and women that we're working with, and we've got to continue to look at how is this impacting them and how are we helping them to navigate this as well. And so I think it's complicated, but every industry changes, and we have to adapt as our industry changes, just like every other one does.
All right, that's Dr. Linda Livingstone. She introduced Brett Yormark today. She was on the podium with Bob Bowlesby, who was there as well. and some comments about many things as she was off to the side after the press conference with Dave Aranda. And